So, welcome to Wednesday. It's Scrapbook Live for September 21st. I'm Megan Jax, and we have a fun project for you today. We're doing the September 2022 bonus sketch. It's sketch number 1 from the Creative Memories blog, and I have a handout for you if it's on my blog. If you're watching this on Facebook, you're going to see the first comment. We'll have the link to the handout. If you're watching this on YouTube later, the link is in the description below, so you'll be able to get those handouts. And if you give me a little while, all 3 handouts will be included in one PDF. I will get that updated after we do Scrapbook Live right now, so probably after, I would give it until noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, to give me a chance to get that uploaded to the website, but you'll be able to find them all there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my table and you guys can see what we've got going. All right, so the layout I said like we're doing is September bonus 1. Actually, you can see behind here, there's bonus 3 and there's bonus 2. So those handouts will be uploaded to the website, but we just need bonus 1 right now. And it's a golden harvest layout. It's going to be using the decorative trimmer. So you're going to want to have that available. You can of course use the straight trimmer if you want. If you don't have the decorative trimmer, I might be wondering why, like, I feel like I need to have a conversation with you. If you don't have the decorative trimmer, you and I need to have a little discussion as to how that is such a wonderful tool for scrapbooking or really any paper crafting. And you're going to want a variety of papers. I'm going to tell you right now, I am making one adjustment to this. In the directions, you'll see that they want us to cut, in step 5, cut 12 pieces of various papers to measure 4.5 by 1 inch. I am going to tell you right now that I changed that. I am altering it, and I'm going to do 4 inches instead of 4.5. And the reason I'm going to do 4 inches is because then I was able to get I was able to cut a 1-inch strip, and I was able to get 3 pieces out of each of those strips, right? I could only get 2 strips if I cut them to 4.5, but if I cut them to 4 inches, I can get 3 out of that 12 by 1 inch piece. However, keep in mind, you can use scraps. This is a great option if you have just scraps. I had the red, I only had some scraps of red that I cut out of the middle of another layout. So I just trimmed this to a 1 inch and cut it into 4-inch segments. So just something to consider there, one of the various alterations. So for me, as I'm doing this, if you want to follow the layout directions, you would use 4.5, where it says 4.5 for some of these steps. You can stay using 4.5. I will be altering mine to 4 inches so that I have, because of the width of my strips here. So I did see a comment, somebody asking if they would be able to, if they don't have the decorative trimmer, how can they alter this? You could certainly just use a straight trimmer. You could use a decorative blade if you want. You're going to be cutting through the pieces of designer paper and the cardstock. So if you're using the decorative blades on the trimmer, when you make those slices through here, you're going to want to use a very firm pass to get through the designer paper and your cardstock backing. Otherwise, because sometimes if you don't get that first pass all the way just perfect, it's really difficult to do a second pass and have that decorative edge line up perfectly. So you want to make sure if you're using your 12-inch trimmer with a decorative blade in lieu of the decorative trimmer, you will want to make sure you have a very firm hand when you're making that pass to cut. All right, so as you can tell, I have a birthday layout here that I'm going to be doing. And these are pictures of my oldest, Kevin, from when he was turning 5. I had to count the candles to determine how old he was in these photos. And I knew I was going to do a birthday layout with this one. So basically for me, it was just going through my various photos, trying to find horizontal birthday photos. You can, of course, alter this. You could turn the whole thing. If you have vertical photos, you could turn the whole thing and work with vertical stripes at the, put your border at the top or the bottom. You could also just leave this open and you could, put your photos in here however you want. So really the big focus of this particular sketch is this left-hand border segment, and that's what we're going to be doing. It takes up a lot of space. It's a very big focal point. And I'll admit that's another reason that I dialed it back to just being 4 inches rather than the 4.5, mostly because I wanted to make those 3-inch segments, or excuse me, those 3 segments out of the 12-inch piece. But also I figured I could dial it back a little bit, right? It's pretty bold there. It looks beautiful, but I still want my photos to be the centerpiece. I have trimmed my photos down. I altered the photos a little bit so that they were more even rather than having the top and the bottom photos be, you know, a little taller and this really narrow piece. My photos are all pretty consistent in terms of the subject. So I went ahead and just trimmed them all to be the same size. And I have mats to go with them as well. So we will jump right in. If you are using your decorative trimmer for this, okay, so here's the 12-inch decorative trimmer. If you're using this trimmer, I am going to make a recommendation to you right now. I would like you to grab some extra scrap cardstock or paper. I'm going to walk you through the cuts on step 6 before we actually assemble this. We're going to do a practice run with this because, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to show you on white paper before I jump into having my decorative. I've taken all the time to get my strips all in the right spot. I want to walk through it once with just some white cardstock here. It'll be easier for me to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to trim this cardstock to 4 inches. If you want to follow along with some just scrap paper, that's fine. You could just watch this portion. So I've cut this to 4 inches. The width, in terms of this technique, the width doesn't matter. So if you're using 4.5, it'll still be the same technique. But I'm just using 4 inches because that's the width I'm going to be using for my layout here. So here we have the decorative trimmer. And we talked about this before. Sometimes I get my classes, what I've said where, confused, but here's the decorative trimmer. Remember the top and the bottom, it's to center in the decorative trimmer. So if you want the peaks of the swells or the wave to be at the middle, you have to come down from the top 1/4 inch and up from the bottom of 1/4 inch. The decorative trimmer has a 12.5 inch bed to the trimmer itself. So normally I tell you, let's center everything, right? We're going to come down 1/4 inch from the top and 1/4 inch from the bottom. There's one thing, if you want to follow the sketch exactly, that you should note. These waves are not even, right? They're kind of, they are wider in some areas and skinnier in other areas. How to achieve that is instead of working in the middle, we're going to work either at the bottom, along the bottom edge, or we're going to work at the top. And I've just realized that I have a white trimmer bed with a white piece of paper. So that's not going to be very contrasty. So let me really quick, I've got a piece of navy cardstock. I'm going to trim a piece of navy cardstock because that's going to show up on my trimmer bed a lot better than this white paper. So let me switch over to that really quick. I just want to make sure you guys can see what we're doing on the camera or on the video. Here we go. All right. So I've got my strip here. I am looking at step 6. We're just doing a practice. You can just be watching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the bottom of my trimmer. The other part, really quick, what I was practicing last night, what I want to do is I'm going to mark the front versus the back. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it gives us direction like to flip our paper. So I'm marking the front just with some lines. I've got my gold metallic pen here, so I know what my front is. And if I want to, I could mark, this would be the left side and this is the right side. Okay. So I've got my right side. I'm going to put this in from the left. I'm lined up at the bottom. because I want my waves to be kind of off center a little bit so I can get that skinny versus fat versus skinny. It's not a perfect wave or swell, and we're using the swell edge. I indicated that here in the directions. They say make a wave cut. You could use the wavy edge, but the layout here shows using the swell edge. So I just noted that you're going to use the swell edge of your decorative trimmer, and they want you to come out 1/2 inch. So if we look out here, we'd push this all the way to 1/2 inch, and that's just 2 squares beyond the cut line. Now, 1/2 inch is a recommendation. You could dial that back if you want to. Since I'm working with a slightly smaller piece of paper, that 4 inch versus 4.5, I'm going to push this back just a little bit. I'm just pushing it back. And I'm going to go ahead and cut. And remember, I am down here on the bottom. So now I'm going to set this piece aside. And then it says you want to do that on each side of your layout. So I will go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and you could just rotate this around to the back side, like here if you want to. Because everything's a little uneven, we're not worried about complete symmetry. What I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to flip it over. So I'm working on the back side on my straight edge, down at the bottom again, and I'm going to repeat the same cut. So for me, I'm not coming quite all the way out to 1/2 inch, and I'll go ahead and cut. So when I flip this over, there's the front again, and I see my left side. Okay, so now I happen to have a fairly symmetrical piece. Now these next cuts are all about not being, we do not want to follow the line perfectly. So what I'm going to do is they want us to flip it over. We'd be working with the back side. And they want us to cut another strip. Now when I cut this, let's see, here's my back side. What I'm looking for is I am looking for not an even edge along here. Right now, since I'm at the bottom, I have an even edge. But look, if I slide this all the way to the top and I put my line down, it's a little more uneven. I can see that I'm not following the contours exactly. And yeah, so there you can't, because I've got dark paper on with the black. Well, hopefully you guys, when you're looking at yours, you'll be able to see. I'm a little fatter down here and a little thinner in here. So it's not quite perfect. It's not parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut. They say to make a 1/2 inch. You can make it as wide as you want. Whatever piece we cut here, we're actually discarding. So I'm not so concerned about it. Whatever I see here, though, will be my gap on my background. So there we go. I'm going to flip it around. I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it 180 degrees, and I want to do a similar. And so what I'm looking for, remember here, I am looking for non-parallel, it doesn't follow it completely. For this one, I have to actually bring it to the bottom. Up here at the top, I'm following the contour parallel. I'm going to come down to the bottom. And there I can see now I'm no longer following it exactly. I'm going to have some wide spots, some skinny spots, and that's what I want to see. You can really see it in those pieces here. See how they're not even all the way down? Some spots are wider, some are narrower. That's what I'm looking for. So now, when I put this back over, you can see I've got some skinny spots and I've got some wide spots. It's maybe a little hard to tell, but I can see it there. All right, so now that we've had a practice run, or I've had a practice run, let's start putting the layout together. All right, so the big focal feature we're gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna make that border piece. Before I cut anything else, I'm gonna make the border piece. So I've got my 4-inch wide strip here that I've cut just of some scraps cardstock. And I've got various pieces from the, this is from the Party Time collection. And I cut them into 1-inch strips and then trim those strips at 4 inches. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lay these out. I kind of already did a run last night of the order of the photo of the pieces, but I'm just going to put them out for you here. You would just put them on your paper. And what you're looking for is to have an even distribution of your colors and your, and apparently I'm misplaced some of my strips because I had enough strips. Oh my goodness. So I know I'm supposed to have another one of those. I know for sure. And I think I'm supposed to have another yellow. I had them all stacked up and ready to go. And they, of course, have disappeared. What's the back side of the yellow? The candles. This is where I'm going to admit that I really like doing just the recordings where I'm not live, because then I just hit pause and nobody has to see me looking around frantically trying to find the strip. And the reason I'm frantically trying to find it is because I do not have another piece of that. The yellow was what I was really short on. So I didn't have another piece of the tonal yellow. So what we're going to do is I do have yellow cardstock. So when all else fails, I'm going to be putting in some yellow cardstock. So I'm going to do a 1-inch. I need 2 of those pieces. So I'm going to just trim this to 1 inch. Actually, let me see. We'll go 1 inch. Yeah, I'm just like you guys. Trust me, I'm losing things all the time. So there I have 2 of the yellow strips, which I know I need because I just like to balance that bright color out. And now it's just getting things placed in here, getting the colors separated. Though I'm going to admit, guys, I am super bummed I can't find that piece of paper. I'm going to give it one more little run through. My desk is a mess. I'm going to tell you guys, if you could see the rest of my space here, you would definitely know that I am pretty crazy this morning. All right, so we're just going to make this work. We're going to work with it. All right, there we go. Normally I would incorporate some green, but my background is going to be the green. So those stripes that we see coming down, the swell waves there are going to be in this green. So that's the color that's going to be popping through. Otherwise, I would have tried to work in some green. So we're going to go ahead and put these pieces down. Make sure that like I've got some directional paper here. I'm going to make sure the presence of this piece. And really, I do need to make sure I'm using a good amount of adhesive all the way across so that when I cut off those swells, I don't have pieces just falling off. That would not be good. So now I'm wondering, I'm going to be making some quick changes. I mean, I love the Buttercup cardstock, but I really wanted to use the tonal papers. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll pull in, instead of using the candles, which are on the opposite side here, I do know that I have more of the cupcake paper. Oh, actually I found some paper in my scraps. So we will cut this. I'll get some more of that candles plus the yellow. We'll be good. Just cutting this to a 1x4 so I can still have the candles on there and I can still have my yellow tonal paper. I think what I'm going to do is separate my lighter pieces just by one more. And really what I'm doing is I'm looking at this and I'm just looking for anything that stands out. Is there, do I feel like I have a good distribution? They're not in a particular order, but I'm just making sure that I've got a nice distribution. Here's my dark pieces. They're nice and distributed. So are my higher contrast with that white, and my bright yellows are also nicely separated. So that's just what you kind of look for. Just give yourself a nice overall, move things around. You just want a good distribution. If something draws your eye, that might be the indication that you need to move it or make an adjustment, especially if it's not something you want to draw your eye. And I don't want any one particular piece on here to draw my eye. I want it to be a nice, even separation of the patterns. We just keep going here. This piece I did not get. I want to try to make sure I'm covering up all the back of my cardstock. I don't want any of that white cardstock showing through. I was going to make this whole layout pictures from my birthdays, but I couldn't find, it was going to take too long for me to track down the photos. I have two, I was going to do 3 different years, just kind of do a grouping of, maybe we take the same picture basically every time. It's you sitting in front of your cake and my kids around me with my cake with my candles that say my age. And I thought it'd be fun, but then I got lazy last night and decided I didn't want to go sit in front of the computer and try to find and print those pictures. So I had these photos from Kevin's birthday from when he was 5. So that would be 15 years ago. And there we go. What you can do here, depending on your edging here, is you may need to clean this up. I am going to give this a quick trim. I can see that I've got some overhang there. I just used the back of one of the cover sheets from Creative Memories. So I'm going to give this just a quick trim and just clean it up so it's nice and even. The other side over here is pretty good. That's where I defaulted when I was putting all my pieces on. I try to keep nice and flush on that edge. It's just any difference in length over here was where it was noticeable. So give that a quick trim. And now it's time to use our decorative trimmer. You might be using your 12-inch trimmer with a decorative blade. And just remember when you make those cuts to be nice and firm. And you're going to want to cut about, you can cut in about a 1/2 inch and maybe pull out a 1/4 inch. The other thing you could be doing, depending on how you set this up, is you could be working with a 4-inch piece of paper here. Go ahead and make one cut. And then if you put it on your piece of paper that's a little bit wider, you can just separate your pieces. You don't actually need to cut out a strip. You just need to, and this is if you're using a decorative blade and you just want to make 3 segments. You could Also do the same if you're using the decorative trimmer. And let me just quickly show you. So I'm defaulting, here's my front. I'm gonna default again down to the bottom edge. And I'm gonna come over not quite a 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna go ahead and trim. All right, so there we go. Since I use that adhesive all the way to the edge, my pieces hopefully will stay put. I'm going to flip mine over, stay down to the bottom, and cut the same piece off the other side. So now, depending on how you're doing this, you could be good. You could just come in here like this, separate your pieces, and there's your border right here. That's one way to do it. Now all you have to do is you can measure, use your ruler, and you can come in and measure how wide that needs to be. So right there, I'm at 4.5. So if I wanted that 4.5, I could just have made my 4-inch segment, pull my pieces apart, and there we go. Now I want kind of that funky edge that they show in here where it's not even, because you can see these are all even all the way down. I want mine to not be even. So now I'm gonna come in back to my trimmer, and I'm gonna be working to get a very inconsistent thing here. So let me drag this all the way down, and maybe now you guys will be able to see it a little bit better. I'm narrower at the top. It's just not even all the way down. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that inconsistent where it's not a parallel cut. It's thicker in some spots, skinnier in other spots. And there I have some pieces falling off. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, looking for that inconsistent. And I've got it. It's skinny here, it's fat there. It's just not the same all the way down. And that's what I want. And now as I line these up, I can see, what do I want for my width? Do I want to go wide? Do I want to go narrow? And then I can use my ruler. Maybe I want to have a little bit of green sticking out on both sides. That would be an option too. I have a little bit of green over here, and I could cut this a little bit wider. Depends on how much room you have for your photos. So here I'm looking at 4.5. It'd be about 4 3/8. I think I'm going to cut this to 4 1/4. This green strip. So I'm going to come back to my, and it doesn't really, the 4 1/4. We'll do 4 1/4. So this is going to go behind the border that I just created. Now I've kind of got a little wonky here on my directions. I need step number 3 says I need a 1/2 inch strip of the paper I use in the background to put on the right side of my layout. You don't have to, you could use something else. The reason I think that they did this is it draws this same color here, this dark teal color, draws it over to this side. Gives it a nice sense of balance. So that's one reason to use that same color, that same vertical piece that you're seeing here, you're seeing it over on this side. It just kind of helps things feel nice and balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll cut that 1/2 inch strip that I can use on the right side of my page. So 1/2 inch. It's the first solid line to the right side of the cutting. There we go. So now I'm ready to start assembling pieces. My background is going to be the craft stars. The opposite side are the numbers from the Party Time collection. This will go over here on the left side. The 1/2-inch strip is going to come over here on the right. I'm doing a dry fit. It's before I started hearing everything. I want to make sure I like what I've got. I just love the Party Time collection. I love the colors. I've used it for so many birthday layouts because I'm really, really behind, right? My kids hardly had birthday books or anything like that. So I've got like 5 million, but there's just been so many colors and so many ways that I've been able to bring in other colors to go with it. So here we go. I want these to be, I think, a little narrower. I think I am going to go ahead and default a little bit and have a little bit of the green on the outside edge. And I'm going to bring it over so you can see the craft. I think, I don't know, maybe I'll still leave it over here since I've got this all the way here. Get my photos on. My photos I meant to have a little bit wider so they'd have a little bit more presence on the layout, but I made a mistake when cutting them. You ever do that where you cut off more of one than you meant to and you're like, crud, I need to cut them all that same way now, especially if you're trying to line things up. And I wanted to line them up, so I needed them all to be the same width. And there will definitely be some embellishing that I need to do with stickers. I'm just using the Party Time stickers when that time comes. So of course it's going to be my standard, you know, let's get the basic put together. I'll finish it up off camera and post, share it with you. So you can see here, I do have a little bit of space. So I could come in a little bit here. I could come in a little bit over on this side if I want to. Now in the sketch itself, they have some additional details in here. They've got the embellishment clusters. You can see the triangle of them there to give that nice, keep your focus moving around the photo. But they also have a detail down the middle of the border. So what I decided to come up with is I am going to try, and I wasn't sure on the color. I got to figure this out. This is the Quilted Circles border punch. It was from one of the secret boxes. I think this may have been the Q4 from last year. So the 4th box in 2021 was Quilted Circles. But what I'm going to do is I've got these, I cut circles. Circle number 1, inside track green blade, and I made a lot of these little circles. Then I went through my punches and I got my double balloon punch. I'm using the small balloon. I grabbed the cake punch. I'm going to be using that middle cupcake, and the gifts punch using the middle gift. And they all fit on these little circles. So before I commit to gluing everything down, I wanted to make sure that I liked the red. I wasn't sure what color to use. So I've got these little icons. I'm going to go up in rainbow order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I'm not using purple. Let's see here. There's my green balloon. Oops, nope, it has to be yellow balloon. I'm alternating between the balloons and the other icons. It's a green cupcake. And blue balloon. And starting over with a red present, orange, yellow, and then green balloon at the top. And then I have just a half circle that I will cut this in half to finish out. I'm not going to worry about putting the icons at the top or the bottom because they would just be cut off anyway. You could mimic the same thing. You don't need to have the Quilted Circles border punch. I could have just punched, or I could have used the red blade in the center here and cut a slightly bigger circle, then the green would cut the inner circle and I could just line them up. But the quilted circles, of course, that punch made it super easy to do. So there we go. And then I will be able to come in with stickers from the Party Time collection. And there's, the happy birthday sticker. I need to look and see if I want to do any kind of journaling. I honestly don't know much more about this other than it was his 5th birthday. So I might go ahead and do a little embellishment cluster here. Probably, I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is I will cut a circle out of maybe some white cardstock, maybe mimic the red behind here. So it's actually scarlet for anyone who's trying to keep up with the colors I'm using. I use scarlet as for the quilted circles. That I will go ahead and use one of my letter dies. I have the numbers, or grab some of my stickers and, put the 5th birthday, put maybe the year on there, and just kind of finish that out with the rest of the layout. So I think it's a nice balance. I've got a lot going on over here with this border, so I don't think I'm going to go too crazy with any additional embellishments or whatnot. Right now, when you're looking at it, you still see the photos. You still see, you can appreciate the details of this, but eye is still drawn to those photos, which is really what I want. I don't want to have anything that overpowers too much of the photos there. So that is pretty much, I'll make some details here, or I'll finish up some things. I probably will come in around these circles and do some black stitch marks around each of their circles, just to give that white circle a little bit of a finished detail. I'll make sure to take a close-up picture of that before as I post it, and you guys will have a chance to see all those details. So that is sketch number 1 from the bonus sketch number 1 from the Creative Memories blog. So lots of fun there, lots of ways that you can do it. As I said, be sure to check out all of the samples that are on the in the virtual crop group. I've seen a ton of them being posted already, and they all look pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to what you guys share. Be sure to share them into that group. You don't have to have photos on there. So if you're worried about sharing layouts that have personal photos or personal journaling, you can leave your journaling off, leave off your photos, or put little post-it notes over the faces and share what you create. I mean, we all want to see the different variations. Some people are going to follow along just like I did and kind of keep it true to the sketch. Other ones are going to go crazy, right? We used 1-inch strips. You could vary the width of the strips if you wanted to. You could use 2-inch strips instead of the 1-inch or 1.5. 2-inch strips, you're going to need 6 of them. If you use 1.5-inch strips, you're going to need 8, I think. So just have fun with it. And you could use border punches in there too. You could make those strips out of border punches if you wanted to work in, playing around with your punches. That's why we buy them, right? We want to play with them. So you could put borders on here, border stickers, anything that you want to do to create that initial stack of design. And then you're going to cut it down with your decorative trimmer. If you're using border punches, you want to make sure you get a nice amount of adhesive on there so that when you're slicing things, that you're not going to, things aren't going to fall off. I would also recommend, if you use border punches, that you consider always cutting from the front instead of flipping it over. The reason is you want to make sure as you're pulling that blade down the paper, that you don't somehow accidentally catch one of those border pieces and it tears. So if you're always working from the front, you can see, and you can kind of just go slow as you proceed through those, the delicate, border punches, what you've cut, and just make sure that you don't actually tear that. The blades are pretty good. If you are seeing a lot of fraying on your blades with the decorative trimmer, go ahead and order new blades. Get some new blue blades. You just want to make sure that you have those nice clean cuts. Anytime you've got any kind of frayed edges, you should not have frayed edges when you're using Creative Memories tools. If you're using the decorative trimmer and you're seeing frayed edges, what you need to do, check your blades. they may need to be replaced. They don't last forever. They do wear out. You'll want to get new ones. Also, check into your the grooves, the cutting lines here. Just make sure those are clean. Okay, you want to make sure they're nice and clean. The other thing is if you're getting frayed edges on the 12-inch trimmer here, flip your mat. If you guys didn't know that, I hope everybody does. This mat comes out. There's 4 different sides. You'll see them marked 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you've got a nice deep groove in there, it's time to change your mat. You're going to get frayed edges. You do not want to cut your pretty paper and have frayed edges. So just rotate your mat around. Usually when I get over to side number 3, I know it's time to order a new one. I actually usually have a few extra on hand just because when I'm doing events, I need to have those available. But just keep an eye on it. You want to switch that out. You more than likely do not need a new straight blade. I am working with the same straight blade since November of 2020. I thought I wrote it on here and it's worn off at this point. Oh, I take it back, of 2019. So the blades will last a long time. Just switch out your mat. All right, so those are my couple little tips using the trimmers, keeping, making sure you're having those nice crisp edges. We've put the project together. I can't wait to see what you guys create with it. I'll get this all posted to YouTube. So if you are just now tuning in, you haven't missed anything. It's all recorded. It will all be available. You just need to buzz back to the beginning and have a gander at what we created. All right, everybody have a great Wednesday. I will definitely see you next week. I don't know what the project's going to be yet. We will definitely get that figured out. Actually, I do know what it's going to be because next Wednesday is the last Wednesday of the month. So that means we do borders. So that'll be fun. I'll pick out some borders. We'll grab our punches and we will put borders together again next week. All right, everybody have a fantastic Wednesday and an enjoyable rest of the week. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks.